Tây Bắc, tờ báo tiếng Việt lâu đời nhất trong khu vực của chúng ta. Xin hãy gọi 206-722-6984.
Rainier Avenue Radio, your community radio station.
This is Cindy Bray, the host of Heartbeat Radio.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star
This
Time.
is Paul Schneiderman today on the 73rd edition.
Hey,
of
y'all,
Sports
welcome to
Rainier
Travelers
Avenue
Guide to
Radio.
Venus and Mars and Princess Robin. I'm Alicia Ferry, godmother. Yes, no, you dirty
Your home for information about the impact of the
coronavirus. Amongst many things that's difficult about this virus is that it prevents
it's been devastating. They're really heartbreaking stories of people who have.
There isn't anyone that isn't impacted.
Shutting our schools down, including all athletic programs.
Your first-hand accounts.
I got here to take the test, and I found out that I was positive.
A lot of people who know me, I'm still the first person they know.
But it was almost like you were patient zero for South Seattle. Your stories of community coming together.
Partner very heavily with Tacoma Urban League, who is doing some amazing work in response.
We're doing things for small businesses. We're giving out loans to small businesses.
And so I think it's very important that we have leaders who feel.
I cannot tell you, we're calling 20, 30, 40 members.
This crisis in our community, we've been working to address it.
Rainier Avenue Radio, broadcast 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Karen Z with Rainier Avenue Radio.
Hey, this is Sergio the Cool. RainierAvenueRadio.world. RainierAvenueRadio.world. We got you covered. Local impact, global presence.
Broadcast. Welcome to RainierAvenueRadio.world and our weekly coverage of impact on communities. Continuation of our series. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us again here. And then again, now we are aware of the fact that we are and more folks listening to that at 1.2.
Atlantic Street Center has been serving the children, youth, and families of the Seattle King County area since 1910. We partner with families and communities to raise healthy, successful children and youth through services including counseling, early learning, youth development, domestic violence, and education support for school-aged children. Committed to serving the African American community, Atlantic Street Center provides services and support for all marginalized people. Learn more at AtlanticStreetCenter.org.
You're listening to RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Welcome. This is Brenda Charles-Edwards, the host of Seniors Matter. We're live every Friday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on www.RainierAvenueRadio.world, your community radio station. You can also listen to us on YouTube, Facebook.com, Twitch TV, and the Rainier Avenue Radio app. Seniors Matter invites a variety of guests to discuss issues and activities that may impact the lives of older adults, their families, and the community. If you're interested in having your financial documents notarized and you're a senior that needs them read to you for clarity of completion, call me, Brenda, at Black Orchid Notary, 206-683-2636. Tell me where, I'll meet you there. August is National Immunization Awareness Month, an annual observance that highlights the importance of vaccination in protecting public health. Vaccines work better when more people get them. During the COVID-19 pandemic, routine vaccinations have declined significantly across all populations in the U.S., with demand plummeting as much as 95% for some vaccines. Vaccines help keep children healthy. Vaccines are not just for children. Prior to COVID-19 pandemic, approximately 50,000 U.S. adults died each year from vaccine-preventable diseases. Vaccine-preventable diseases are expensive. Diseases not only have a direct impact on individuals and their families, but also carry a high price tag for society as a whole, exceeding $10 billion per year. An average influenza illness can last up to 15 days, typically with a person missing 5 or 6 work or school days. Adults get hepatitis A. They can lose an average of 1 month of work. My guest today is Mrs. Patricia McBrien, registered nurse, who is here to share with us about what vaccinations are, how they work, and common concerns. Welcome to the show, Patricia. It's good to see you again.
Oh, thank you. Welcome. Glad to be here. Just let me fix my ears. Here we go. Okay, now I can hear.
No problem. So we're going to just jump right into this.
Sure.
What is the definition of a vaccine?
Okay, a vaccine is described as an agent made out of your body that's put into your body to help you build up immunity, which is the way we fight disease, be they viruses or bacteria. It sort of like helps make the little soldiers that fight outside agents, and they're specific. Each little soldier is specific to the disease it's supposed to fight.
So how are vaccines made? And is it possible to get a case of the illness that I'm trying to prevent?
Good question. Well, until recently, there's been two basic ways to make them. And one is they call it a live attenuated virus. You might have heard that recently. And that's when they take the actual agent, let's say varicella, that's what causes chickenpox, and they distill it down to its very weakest form and put that in a medium. These are the vaccines that have to stay very cold. And then when they're given to your body, the body reacts to the antibody, the antigen, the protein on that chickenpox, and will start to fight it. And so the next time it's exposed to it, it'll be ready to kick it and get rid of it. But you're not actually being given enough of that to make you sick. And the other way they make vaccines is the new version now is the what we were making with COVID, which is the mRNA vaccine. And it sounds like all of a sudden they developed it right away, but I have a friend who actually was working on it. And it's sort of a messenger DNA. And what they do is they take the messenger DNA off of the little crowns if you look at the coronavirus, it has those little spikes. Mm-hmm. They have a protein covering. They take that off, inject the messenger RNA into it, put it in your body, and then your DNA will make the antibodies directly to that. I'm going off tack, but I know that there's some current concerns with this vaccine that this messenger RNA will get in your body and change your DNA. And that is not true, because in the way the body works is the DNA tells the RNA what to do.
Is that like the RN telling the doctor what to do? Oh.
Yes, exactly. Well done. And then another vaccination style is called the inactivated vaccine. And there you have no live components at all of the pathogen. And it's given in a format that will sort of imprint and get your body. It exposes it, but it doesn't bring the actual virus, bacteria into your body, but your body will respond to it when it recognizes it if you're exposed to it in the future.
So is that why we sometimes may feel sick or run a fever after getting vaccinated?
Yes. And let's talk about, it's like you have, some vaccines are one time only. And then it's not unusual to have, let's say your DPT, that's your pertussis diphtheria. You get 3 of those and then a booster as your body slowly builds up immunity to exposure, because we want to make sure that it builds up over time and it's there when you need it. And other vaccinations, you just need 1 and that will work. But it's not unusual to see what's happening now with the COVID, where we're looking at providing boosters. That happens with many diseases. It doesn't indicate that the vaccine's not working.
So how is the shingles vaccine? I see a lot of advertisement for it. Mm-hmm. I have experienced shingles, mm-hmm. and trust me, it is no fun time.
Oh, no. Well, what happens, and I know that COVID also, people are complaining with sort of to me, they're very similar, but they're stronger. Not to poo-poo them. People will have headaches, fevers, but with COVID, it lasts a little bit longer. And so what that's doing is your body is not catching the disease. It's your body going, building up its immune process and making the antibodies so that it's there when it needs to fight the disease you're getting vaccinated against. So it's sort of like, in the old day when you would have a fever, they'd say, well, it shows your body's working. Your body's trying to keep itself well. So it's an unfortunate reality of it. But most of them are not serious, even though they can be uncomfortable. And of course, if you're ever concerned and you feel like you're sicker than your neighbor said they were or whatnot, then call your doctor and make sure.
So that sort of follows along the line, I guess, that if I'm having a reaction, I don't know how concerned I should be. Because I remember when I had my COVID shot, I was a little tired. And by the time I got home, I laid down to get a nap. And I woke up 2 hours later.
You're wiped. That's a good question too, because how do you know what's normal, right?
Right.
Like if you're looking at, let's say you had surgery on your arm and we looked at the wound the next day, to you it would look terrible, right? But to nurse, you could say, well, that looks normal. So you need parameters and to sort of self-assess. And I would say that if your headache was getting worse after 2 hours and not getting better, if you were unable to sort of wake up, you slept, you took a hard nap, but you felt like you were still fuzzy thinking or your balance wasn't right, anything like that, then I would definitely call. And if you were feeling symptoms after 2 days, independent, if they were getting worse, but they weren't any better, I would call. And I can't stress enough, that's what they're there for. So if you're not concerned, don't walk and worry at all. Just give them a call. They want to know too, but to keep you well, plus any kind of untoward reaction gets reported right away to the FDA so that they know that if there's a problem with a batch or the vaccine in general.
If you're just tuning in, you're listening live to Seniors Matter with your host, Brenda Charles-Edwards on Rainier Avenue Radio.world, your community radio station. Every Friday, we're here at 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can also listen to us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch TV, and the Rainier Avenue Radio App. What is the best gift you can give yourself and your loved ones? Join me on Zoom for a group or individual session on end-of-life planning. You can reach me at 206-683-2636. Now back to my guest, Dr. Patricia McBrien. Excuse me, I called you a doctor. Man, pardon me. I mean, you're almost there. You're a registered nurse, but Patricia McBrien.
Thank you.
She's been a nurse for over 30 years. She's worked in hospitals, perinatal, clinics, pediatrics, and school nursing. Settings appear different, but they all center on families. So one other thing about the vaccination, why would my arm at the injection site feel warm and look maybe red or pink?
Well, that's what we call a localized reaction. And that is because when you're first injected with the vaccine, it takes a certain amount of time for that to disseminate and sort of get absorbed into your bloodstream and through the muscle. And so it shows that your body's already reacting to that vaccine that quickly, that it's recognizing it's foreign and it's starting to do what it needs to do, which is make the antibodies. But that can produce heat and it can feel warm in that site. So what I usually recommend is that you kind of try to move your arm around after your vaccine, and you could take a little bit of Motrin afterwards, like 2 hours afterwards. In the old days, we tell you to take it ahead of time so you didn't get your headache or you didn't get your fever. Right. And now they realize we don't want to interrupt any of that inflammatory process, So you can take it 2 hours later, take something like a Tylenol, move that arm, and you can put a little cool pack on it as well and watch it. If it starts to get darker red, it starts to feel hard or hot, then call right away. It's very unusual, but we want to make sure that you're not getting a localized reaction to the point where it needs maybe a steroid or something, some kind of cream to it.
Right. It's like having hives or something.
Yeah.
Allergic reaction. So now I know you have heard a lot of people saying that there are harmful ingredients in these vaccines. Do you think this is true?
Well, I know that some are not necessary. I mean, they're concerns, but whether they're founded or not, I'm not comfortable saying that they are. I know that there's a lot of concerns over mercury, Thermacell, and they were found in all the vaccinations back in the day when I was a young nurse, and they still use Thermacell, but only in vials where they take more than one dose. In other words, a bottle that maybe 4 people will get a vaccine from. They use Thermacell with that. And I've worked where I've even had a health clinic on board, and I haven't seen that. Usually the industry is very much providing individual doses. You might see Thermacell in places where it's hard to get to supplies into a clinic. Let's say, maybe in South America or some of foreign countries. But even having said that, the Thermacell is not the same type of mercury that causes mercury poisoning that we're very familiar of. And it's an inert, safe form of a preservative, and that's why it's there. So that, I understand people are concerned, but there's no data that indicates that's a problem for the people that do get it. And then there are other things in there that are sort of residuals from the manufacture of the vaccines, such as egg products. And there's a little bit of antibiotics. And they do make vaccines now that do not have egg products. So if you have a history of any kind of allergy, even if it's just an itchy nose when you eat eggs, let the provider know, and they'll give you the type that has no egg, was not manufactured with an egg albumin protein. And then with all vaccines, after you receive them, they have you wait about 20 minutes. And as far as the antibiotic exposure, they don't use like penicillin, amoxicillin, some of the big responding types of vaccine. And they're in the antibiotics are in very small quantities. But once again, you discuss that with your physician before you get the vaccine, and they'll get on board the type that is not used, doesn't have the most popular antibiotics used in the processing. So,
what about formaldehyde?
The pardon?
What about formaldehyde?
Oh, formaldehyde, it sounds so icky because it's in there as well. You always think of, I shouldn't say it, but Undertaker. Yep. But it's okay. It's a very, very, very low dose. And actually there is formaldehyde in our drinking water at time, and we do ingest it to small degrees. And so the little bit of formaldehyde that is in these vaccines have been approved and are safe.
Okay.
And I will say this, I'm a mom, and so I wanted to make double, triple, quadruple safe before I let my daughter be vaccinated. So I don't want to sound sort of nonchalant. Don't worry about the formaldehyde. But the data shows you it compares what you find in your drinking water with what's in the manufacturing.
Gotcha.
Not to make light of people's concerns.
Right. So if I'm scheduled to receive some vaccines and I've come down with a low-grade fever and mild illness, can I still go and get vaccinated? No. The last 20 months, we've certainly become much more aware of how our body's immune process works. And in the old days, the feeling was, hey, you've got the appointment, better get yourself vaccinated than and then you've got it on board. But now they realize that when you're running a little fever, you're a little sick,
your immune system is involved in fighting that disease, and you won't get the response they want when they give you the vaccination you're coming in for. So the advice now is to just call your doctor, let them know you're not feeling well, you run in a little fever, and they'll reschedule that for you. That's a good question, because it's the time of year now we're all going to get drippy noses and low-grade fevers. It's also,
Yes. So, you were talking about the mRNA. And so if one was fearful of the COVID vaccine, is it true that the vaccine, we did talk about the DNA though, but
sure.
How do we, I don't want to say convince people, but.
I'm sorry?
So I don't want to say how do we convince people.
Yeah.
But is there any connection between immunization and autism?
Yes. I know that's been a concern for decades. And it certainly was, as I've got two hats. I'm a mom and I'm a nurse. So, and I've worked with children professionally. So I watched that topic and looked into it closely. And I know that there has been no data that indicates that that is a problem. One of the things that you see happening is just about the time the baby starts to manifest sort of behavioral symptoms that might lead to that you think you might have autism is about the time that they're starting to get their vaccinations, and that's why the connection is there. I've talked to many mom over at Children's in the clinic there who the baby was fine, and then after the vaccine started, they noticed a change, and of course that's heartbreaking. But they've done quite a few studies now that don't find a hard data link to that. And I know people try to, will do things like maybe not take so many on one day. Sometimes when they're little, they'll come in, if you remember, any of you people were a mom, they'll have like 3 or 4 at a time. And their immune systems can handle that, but some people feel more comfortable that they spread it out and wait and feel that that decreases their chance of an autistic development. And like I said, there's no hard data proving that, but if that makes people feel comfortable, I encourage them to do that.
So I know that one of your passions is healthcare for everyone. And you've been a nurse for over 30 years. And I know you've also had some interactions with working in the public school system too. What words would you give to parents that are struggling with whether or not to have their children wear masks, whether or not to have them,
Yeah, this is really difficult days for us all. But I know that we know enough about the COVID that we know what helps decrease the likelihood of transmission. Nothing is 100% safe. Even in the old days with polio vaccine, occasionally somebody got polio. So we know that what we do know is it's spread respiratory, and a mask prevents that. And the symptoms, unfortunately, sound like everything else until they're not. So if your child or you have a little runny nose, you're running a fever, then we have you stay home to make sure. And if they're old enough, children are only getting vaccinated at a certain age, but adults and children, if they're vaccinated, then that's one way. If not, to protect yourself, you also can spread it, less likely to spread it, even though we've seen an uptick, which is tragic. But if you look at the statistics, the majority of those people were unvaccinated to begin with. And I personally know 2 people that were vaccinated and came down with it, and very mild, very, very mild. And to me, that shows that the vaccine did what it's supposed to do, is make you end up not, on your back with a ventilator tube. So it's certainly something, there's information. I know the CDC is a little hard to access what they're trying to tell you, but you can go to the Washington State Department of Public Health. King County has a great site, King County Public Health, where they have information for you, all kinds of information. And I know personally and professionally, when I've struggled with something, for me, the key is knowledge. Right. And the more knowledge you can get, the more able you are to make up your mind. You know, the last thing I want to do is have somebody tell me, bah, 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 bah. But if I read this and it's logical, hey, it's spread when they cough, we'll put a mask on. You know, I'll get the vaccine. I may or may not get a slight case, but it makes it harder for me to spread it to somebody else. Then those decisions you can make clear-minded and with as much available information as we can give you right now.
Well, you said something right on point about getting information, getting educated, but don't take the word of what you see on Facebook and a lot of the other social media. You're actually going to have to go into the website, put in the words that you're questioning and read, but just don't listen and read what you hear on Facebook.
Yes, I mean, you have to look at your source. And of course, I'm an old duffer, so I don't Facebook anything. I didn't even know people used it for information, right?
Oh, you'd be surprised.
Yeah, apparently. So it's a good place if you just want to hook up with your great aunt or whatever. But there's like I said, King County Public Health has science, data-driven information, but told to us in a way as consumers of healthcare. You don't have to be an egghead researcher to understand that information. Somewhere higher up there is. They don't dumb it down, but they give you everything that you need. It's very easy, and they have little links, you know, where to click if you need this or if you need this. And that can be trusted. It's non-partial. They're not getting any money from anybody. They're not promoting a vaccine. They're not selling masks. They just want to take care of us. That's what public health does. And they're looking for all our good. So yes, It's one thing definitely is that I've watched. Like I said, I'm not a social networker, but the amount of, I don't know if we want to call it information, chit chat going on these social sites is concerning to me. And also it's because it's not always correct. And it also is a source of friction for people. You know, I've never seen us so fragmented before us. Not that we're ever perfect, but this kind of stuff's not helping bring us together at a time we need to pull together to get through this.
Well, this isn't really a political issue. It's a public issue. It's trying to save our lives.
Yes. Well, yes, exactly right. Mm-hmm.
But, you know.
Well, and, you know, if you're young and or even old and healthy, and you choose to play the odds, that's one thing. But you don't want, what about your neighbor's grandmother on chemotherapy or your neighbor's 2-year-old that can't get vaccinated? You're making choices in a way for them. I don't mean to sound political either, but it's public health. I mean, when I grew up and was in college, that trumped private interest. We're talking about public health here. We're not talking about whether you should get a tattoo, because that doesn't affect me or the economy or people's lives or ability to work. And so that's why I think if people might framed it like that and said, how do I feel about making somebody else sick? You know, it's one thing to say to yourself, hey, I'm young and healthy and I don't have any residual diseases, but you don't know who you might toss it off to. That's concerning.
That's the whole key right there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And like
it's not about me. It's about we.
When did me come be ahead of us? Yeah. And I know when we went through this country, went through typhoid and typhus and yellow fever, people were like, they did what they had to do. Yeah, I remember from San Francisco, and in the bus stop, there was an old sign from tuberculosis outbreak, and you could tell by the old font they charge you $25 if you spit in the street. Oh, and that was a lot of money. But because we all knew that this was what we had to do. And I never thought I'd live and see this, but
I hear you. Well, this is Brenda Charles-Edwards, host of Seniors Matter. We have reached the end of our broadcast.
Oh,
I would like to, I know it went quick. I'd like to thank my audience for listening.
Yes.
And you, Patricia, for being my guest, and I hope that I can get you to come back.
Oh, I'll
at
be
another
happy to. I
time.
hope I made sense to people. I tend to go, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, you made sense. No problem.
Okay.
And just
All
for my audience to know, we'll be broadcasting a live remote at Clean Greens Plaza this Saturday. Also, we'll be broadcasting live from the MLK Committee celebration of the anniversary of the March on Washington at MLK Park. Be safe. Up next is a coronavirus special edition, and I'll see you soon, Patricia.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Have a
Thank
great
you.
weekend, everyone.
Thank you. Stay healthy.
I will. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
This is Paul Pearson,